With us today, we have Hugh Lashbrook. Hugh is in New Zealand. Welcome, Hugh. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So this past month, we have been looking at LMS, learning management system sites, building out online classes for other people. We're wrapping the month up, the end of July. How did we get this far into the year? I don't know, but we're wrapping up the end of July. We're all using WordPress with a learning classroom type environment, an LMS freely available for a whole lot of us. Today, we're here to talk about learn.wordpress.org, and we'll see a little bit of how it has been created, the team that has worked on it. But Hugh's going to share with us what brings him into the WordPress project, what role he has, and more. So thank you, Hugh, for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started in WordPress?
Cool. Well, hello, everyone. Like Courtney said, I'm in New Zealand, which, judging from the locations in the chat so far, that's very different to a lot of you. I'm coming to you from Thursday morning already, which is this Thursday, right? Yeah. Yeah. So I've been involved with WordPress for like 10 plus years now. First as a developer, I was at an agency that used it, so I had to use it, and it was great. It was around WordPress 2.8, 2.9 sort of time. And been using it ever since. It's been fantastic. For the last 6 or so years, I've been involved with the WordPress community team. So that's a team that is involved in managing the events program around WordPress, Meetups and WordCamps and that kind of thing. And a lot of other just logistics around the WordPress community and collaboration between teams and all that sort of thing. And for the past year, I've been working on this LMS platform we're talking about, Learn WordPress, working with the WordPress training team, where Courtney's involved as well, which has been great. And we've been building out this LMS, a platform for people to learn how to use WordPress. That's been my kind of large focus of my work, and going forward, it's going to be sort of the primary focus of where I'm involved with the WordPress project. So yeah, that's where I'm involved and why I'm here, I suppose.
Absolutely, for sure. It's good to have you with us. So think back to when you were just getting started with WordPress. What was your experience like when you were learning to use it and or develop with it? How did you figure your way around?
I figured it out as I went, to be honest. My very first use of WordPress was actually, I was setting up a podcast for I think I was 18 or something, or around that, or 19, 20 something. I set up a podcast for my church, and I didn't know how to do it very well. And I found out if you just attached an audio file to a post on WordPress.com, it would syndicate as a podcast. It would add it as the enclosure that you need for a podcast thing. So that was my first use of WordPress. I sort of figured that out by trial and error. And then when I got into WordPress development, it was very much I learned from my peers, like people in my company who are more experienced with it, and they taught me a bunch of stuff. And then from there, I could sort of learn by doing, really. Very much a trial and error sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot about those early years when I was learning WordPress too. And I came in with WordPress 2.3, I think. Been a while. There were not a lot of good training materials available. I had to find people to talk to, which is good. But sometimes the hours that I was working, people weren't available, and we didn't have things like Slack and Zoom and all of that. So I think a lot about what it's like to just get started learning. You mentioned that you work at Automatic in community management. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into that specific area? What about community management you really like?
So I work at Automatic, where I'm essentially a full-time sponsored volunteer on the WordPress project. Automatic sponsors my time to be working on the WordPress project full-time, which is to be honest, I feel like I'm very lucky to have that position. It's great. I guess my involvement there is like with the community and now with the training team as well. It's been really good. What was this? What was the specific question there?
Just about how you got into working with Automatic, how that brought you into the .org project.
I got working. To be honest, I was working at Woo, the company behind WooCommerce. Back then, it was still called Woo Themes, and we were acquired by Automatic. So that's how I ended up at Automatic. It was very much like I didn't have a choice, although I did want to end up at Automatic anyway, so it worked out pretty well for me. Um, and so that's how I got there. But in terms of how I got to the community work, is there's a team within Automatic. There's a whole division now. At the time, it was kind of one or two little teams who are, like I am now, full-time sponsored volunteers for the WordPress project. And I was very interested in that. I'd been helping out in the WordPress community team as what we call a deputy, which is someone who just volunteers a certain amount of time a week. I'd been doing that already for a couple of years, and it just made sense to move over to the team full-time, and the team was looking for someone, and yeah, I could move over, which was fantastic. So it was a really great opportunity. And since then, I've got much deeper into the general world of community management, not just in WordPress, but like more broadly, and that's been really fantastic. I've really enjoyed that, finding out, like, it was almost like finding out about a whole new industry that I almost didn't know existed, which is really cool. And it's it's been great, and I'm really enjoying this sort of shift at the moment into more sort of training focused materials and training content and that kind of thing. That's been a really interesting shift lately for me.
Yeah, for sure. I'm finding myself that there is a good overlap between training and community both. Likewise, that's kind of the role that I get to operate in.
Yeah.
So I didn't tell Hugh this ahead of time. I have been watching the books that you say that you share, and I've read a few of them recently, just on seeing what you've shared that you've been up to and reading. Can you tell me, you left what you moved from within Woo specifically into the community.
Yeah.
What about the community, working in community management, and sort of how that relates to training gets you the most excited? Like, why is that, out of all the things you could be doing in the project, why that?
I really love seeing people. I really love being able to help people and be able to watch people realize their potential with WordPress. To be honest, with open source in general, but obviously WordPress is where I'm focused. And I absolutely love seeing that. So on the community team, it was seeing people start up these local communities where they could connect with each other and form real lasting relationships and friendships with people around WordPress. And it would grow beyond that, of course. And that's been fantastic. And I still love seeing that. But this focus on education and training, it's been really cool, because I love seeing people fulfill that potential. So on the community side, it's those relationships, and on the training side, it's learning how to use WordPress. And the mission of the WordPress project is to democratize publishing, and being able to see people do that, like being able to publish that when they hadn't been able to before, giving people a voice online that they didn't have before. That's really exciting. And for me, that's one of the really important things about Learn WordPress, the platform we're talking about today, that it's providing training for people to be able to do that. And I think that's what really excites me about it.
That's definitely, it resonates deeply. So we've spoken a little bit about what Learn WordPress is, and you might hear us refer to it as just Learn WordPress, or see it maybe in hashtags as Learn WP in a few places. Can you tell us what learn.wordpress.org is and how folks can use it?
Yeah, so we call it Learn WordPress, often just Learn for short, because using the word WordPress when talking about within the project is superfluous. Yeah, so Learn is it's a platform for people that anyone can come to. It's free, as in everything we do in the WordPress project will always be open and free, for people to come to and learn how to use WordPress and find ways to teach others how to use WordPress as well. It's a training resource. It's still being built up, of course, and I mean, as with everything in open source, it's always been iterated upon. It's always been improved. So we have some content there already, which is great, and a lot of content actually. And we're busy building up, adding more features, adding more content as we go. But the idea is that it's a place you can come to learn how to do practical things with WordPress, whether that's as a user wanting to learn how to just publish with WordPress or get started with WordPress, from that sort of one-on-one type stuff, to people who want to build their first WordPress plugin or build their first WordPress theme, or maybe you want to do more advanced development. You want to do some development with the new block editor and you just haven't jumped into that yet. All of that kind of stuff. So we want to be catering to as many needs as possible, all across the sort of spectrum of people who use WordPress, which is a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for a little context, on learn.wordpress.org, we also have lesson plans, workshops, and discussion groups, and courses. So Hugh came in through the workshops area in particular. Can you
Yeah.
tell us just maybe one or two of the workshops that you recall that we have? What stands out about those? And
Yeah.
if you have you participated in some discussion groups?
Yeah. So the discussion group's actually an interesting thing because we got to what a phrase I'm using is collaborative learning. That seems to be a good phrase for it as far as from what I can see. And we've got these we have workshops that you can watch on the site. You can watch a video, teach you how to do something. There are various lengths. It depends on the content. And some of them have a quiz attached where you can sort of test your knowledge to make sure you understood what was said, which was great. Some of the workshops for me that I feel are really important on there are the sort of how to really get started with WordPress, how to use the block editor, that kind of thing. So like if you're new to WordPress, how you can just jump in and start publishing. Because like I said, I love seeing people being able to do that like for the first time. It's so exciting. Yeah, so for me, those kind of videos, there's a whole bunch of those sort of things on the site are really, really valuable. And the discussion groups are very cool. So that's where the sort of collaborative learning comes in. We have discussion groups that we run at various times throughout the day and the week. So it sort of ends up catering to all time zones because our team is spread across the world doing this kind of thing. And the discussion groups that are linked to workshops on the site. So the idea is you would watch a workshop and then you would join a discussion group that's about that topic, and you can just discuss the topic with other people in a live video chat, like this kind of thing, but to be sort of more you can see everyone at once and have a live chat, which is great. Some of the workshops, some of the discussion groups we do on the WordPress Slack group, so they're in text, most of them on video. We try to cater to as many sort of needs as possible, really, on that front. Yeah, so the discussion groups are really, really great, and I'd really encourage people to jump into that. They are on Learn itself, you'll see where it does mention the discussion groups there, and also we run them through a meetup.com group because that's just the easiest way to schedule events. It's meetup.com/learn WordPress discussions. I can drop the link in the chat just now. So yeah.
Sandy might be able to help us track that too. I'll let you both race.
Gotcha.
So WordPress, the software, is possible because we have teams of people that make it possible. Can you tell us the teams that you recall that make Learn possible? You mentioned training, but there's a whole lot more.
Yeah, there's a lot. So the WordPress project, as an open source project, is very, very big, and which I'm sure you all know. And there's about, I think, 18 different contributor teams across the project, maybe 19 now. I forget exactly. I'd have to go look to get the actual figure right now, but it's around that. And that ranges from people involved, that's like the core team who develop the core software, to the community team that I've spoken about, the training team, the support team who manage the forums, and a whole bunch of things, a whole bunch of teams. The teams involved in Learn has actually been quite broad, which is great. There's obviously training. Training have been working on these lesson plans that are available on Learn. They've been working on those since 2013, I want to say, for a very long time. And it's great to see them in this home on Learn, and it's really cool. And so there's training's been involved, community, we've been involved in a lot of the stuff now as well, especially with getting workshops, because some of the workshops come from the live events, WordPress events that have happened and now on Learn, which is great. The marketing team's been involved in the project in terms of getting the word out and helping with sort of positioning things properly. There's the TV team who manage WordPress.tv, which is where there's a massive resource of, I don't even know how many now, tens of thousands of videos about WordPress from events all over the world over the past decade or more. And the videos for the workshops on Learn are hosted there. So the TV team's been involved in helping us make sure that runs smoothly. And those are sort of the teams that have been directly involved in Learn, but some other teams that are sort of connected to the same work. There's like the docs team who write documentation for WordPress, because that's obviously connected and learning out how to use it. And the support team who manage the support forums. It's nice to know what's going on in the support forums, because then we know what kind of content we should focus on for producing for Learn, because we want to produce content that people need. And if there's a lot of questions being asked about something, we should have some content about that. So there's a lot of overlap there with the different teams. And yeah, it's been really great working between different teams on the project, in the broader WordPress project on Learn. And it's been really cool seeing the collaboration that's happened. Because it's very easy for teams to get siloed and sort of work on their thing and focus on that thing. But it's been really, the collaboration we've seen around Learn has been a lot more than I've seen previously on the WordPress project, to be honest. And I've been around in the project for a while, so it's been fantastic time. Yeah.
Yeah, I would concur. I've been around in the team for a number of years now. So seeing how the teams are working together is really, really exciting. And I think one of the things to keep on the radar is that in the next few weeks, there is a translation day that's really a series of days spanning a month. Learn is already working on having content in multiple languages, and we have a few folks that on the regular contribute. We have one that is super active at helping us get a lot of things over to Italian right now. So that's pretty fun.
Yeah.
I would think that those translation days, I'm going to tap into the polyglots folks to see how we can help Learn be, again, continue the work of the translation that needs to happen there. So that's really exciting. How can website implementers use Learn WordPress for their own learning? Meaning those of us that build websites for clients, if we know how to use it, what else can we get that's there?
Yeah, sure. So the platform, if you just go to learn.wordpress.org, as we've dropped the link in the chat, you'll be able to access workshops. They're right there on the homepage. You can go to the workshops page. You can search. You can find a whole bunch of different content there. And yeah, I mean, anyone can go and watch that at any time they like. That's the great thing about it. It's always going to be open. It's always going to be free. There's never going to be like a paywall for it or anything like that. And it's always just there for you to do. And there's quizzes for you to kind of test your knowledge as such, which is great. And we're building up to, we have a couple like kind of more complete courses on there at the moment, and we're building up to having a more sort of robust course structure on the site. So there's going to be, you can say, oh, I need to learn how to publish with WordPress, and you can take a course that'll take you through a series of workshops that teach you all the things you need to know. Or I want to learn how to build a plugin, and it'll start from scratch and get you to a point where you can build and publish your WordPress plugin, or whatever the thing you're trying to do is. So yeah, right now, if you go to the site, there's workshops there. Have a look at them. I'd really encourage you to join the discussion groups, because it's a great way to learn with other people, because then you can sort of bounce your ideas off others. Maybe you picked up something wrong from the video and people help clarify it for you, or maybe you've got insight that other people didn't get, and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Very good. How can people that build websites for clients, website implementers, use Learn WordPress with their clients?
It would be, at the moment, Learn WordPress is a standalone platform, and that it's on its own. If you go to it, the content isn't sort of integrated into WordPress itself, which that is something we would like to see in the future. That's a big project though. I'd very much like to see sort of contextual videos, like you're trying to do something in WordPress. It's like, oh, here's a workshop on how to do this thing. Do you want to go watch it quickly? You know, that kind of thing. And that would be fantastic for clients. We will get there one day, but well, takes a while. Right now, in terms of learning for your clients, I would say as a developer or as an agency, get a sort of catalog of the videos on Learn that are relevant to what you're doing for your clients. And then when you hand over a project to them, you can do your training that you'd normally do with them as an agency, but then also say, here's some videos you can watch for more sort of in-depth learning about these parts of WordPress, or just to refresh your memory. So sort of have a look at the site and find out what ones are most relevant to your clients, and keep a sort of record of those so you can link them to it when the time comes.
Yep, that's great. I'm eager to see more of those resources be available. We will publish a list of a few user-oriented workshops that are available, and we can publish that with the replays at a later time, and when we send the link out. Some of our GoDaddy pros that I see even here in the chat are very active in the WordPress community through Meetups. How can Learn WordPress help them?
Yeah, so do you mean active in Meetups as organizers? Or?
Yes,
Cool.
yes, as organizers, frequent attendees, participants.
So there's two big ways that Learn WordPress really help with Meetup or community organizers. One is there's that we mentioned the lesson plans. Lesson plans are essentially a script with screenshots and everything you need on how to teach a certain area of WordPress. And there's a lot of lesson plans on there. I forget the exact number. It must be close to 100 by now, I'm sure.
Yes, we are. A little bit over.
Yeah, a little bit over now. That's fantastic. And the lesson plans are really robust. They've got everything you need to know and how to teach whatever the topic is, and they go from sort of small details to much bigger picture things, and they're really great. And as an organizer, as a speaker, you can use those lesson plans, and they're there for you to use to teach other people about WordPress. So you can use that for your meetups if you want to teach it yourself. Sandy just dropped the link to the lesson plans in the chat there. Thank you. Those are, they're a fantastic resource for that kind of thing. So that's the one thing you can use. You can use Learn for your local meetups. The other thing is the discussion groups. We have a sort of, like I linked to the meetup.com group, where we have the sort of centralized discussion groups happening. But actually, any meetup group can do that. And some meetup groups have been doing it, where you, as a meetup group, you'll maybe send a message out to your group. So in 2 weeks, we're having a meetup where we can talk about this workshop and this content. So have a watch of this sometime in the next 2 weeks, and then come for a live discussion where we can discuss it together as a group. And that's, a lot of meetups have actually seen quite a lot of success doing that. It's enabled them to have more regular meetups without having the pressure of having to find a speaker or prepare a talk or whatever, because you're discussing around content that you've all watched together. So prep-wise, as a speaker or as an organizer, there's not really a lot to it. It's very much, you just got to sort of have some questions that you would like to ask. And actually, the workshops have what we're calling comprehension questions on there that you can use. So that's a really great way for meetup organizers to run events around WordPress without having to stress too much about preparing content, but also having really good, fruitful, valuable discussions that are relevant, because people will only watch the content and come to the discussion if it's something that they're interested in. So it's always going to be relevant.
I think what you just said is that we need really fresh content about WordPress 5.8 to be available for all the meetups.
Yeah,
that's what I heard you say.
Yeah, no, totally. So that's definitely part of the sort of plan for Learn, is to have it as a very much a current resource. So as a new WordPress version comes out, like WordPress 5.8 is just released, to have content that's focused on that release and what's new and what's coming up and what features you can learn about and that kind of thing. That's very much the plan, to have Learn WordPress being up to date in that sense. I mean, the content on there is still up to date. It's still relevant. It's still great. But we want to sort of do things targeted around releases as well. That we're busy building up people and team to do that kind of work. So hopefully by 5.9 release, which is I think December is the scheduled plan for it, we'll have more sort of direct planning around that.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
Me too.
So I only met Hugh about a year ago myself. Funny story. Got a ping and we were set to launch, and I suddenly got to meet Hugh and provide a long list of contributors over the years, which was really good. Can you give us an idea of what's new recently with Learn WordPress and where we see this going? Matt mentioned it during State of the Word. So last summer we had a soft launch. In December, we made it really public through State of the Word. And that definitely brought a lot of the crowds in. Can you tell us what's new more recently, and also maybe where we're headed in the next few months, few years?
Yeah. So we've had some public discussions about this and some sort of stuff in Slack or on the contributor team P2s and stuff, where we've sort of discussed some of this. And we've got some pretty big plans for Learn WordPress, some pretty ambitious plans, which I'm very excited about, and we'll see how long it takes us to get to it all. But something I mentioned earlier was collaborative learning, which we have discussion groups for that. And I've also mentioned courses. Those are two things we want to bring together, like where we have these kind of a large library of robust, complete, structured courses where people can come to a course to learn a practical skill. And that's it. We want it to be a skill that people can learn how to do something that they could maybe get a job out of, or do something freelance on the side or whatever. That's the idea. So you want those courses there, and we want to combine that with the collaborative learning to have people be able to go through courses as cohorts. Cohort-based courses seems to be a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but it is something we really want to see. So we provide tools for people to go through courses together, either maybe people from the same company wanting to sort of upskill their team, or just people who are friends who want to learn something together, or just connect with other people in the community over content. So that's a big thing we want to see on Learn. And there's a lot of other stuff around that we'd like to see. I already spoke about having content that's targeted around core releases. That's going to be a big thing as well. And a lot of other stuff like being able to integrate, as a learner, integrate your whatever you're learning with your WordPress.org profile. So on your profile, you'll be able to kind of show off the things you've learned, with badges or something. We still need to work out what that's going to look like. So there's a lot of those kind of plans we have that I'm very, very excited for, and we just got to work out how to do it and when we can get it done. It's much easier than just saying it.
Yeah.
One thing that's really going to get us there, though, is as with everything in the WordPress project, is having contributors in the community come on board. And Learn WordPress has been managed under the training team. So I don't know, maybe Courtney, if you'd like to speak a bit more about that, because your involvement with the training team it's great.
Sure thing. So if you have a topic or idea that you would like to see content available for, we would ask you to go to learn.wordpress.org/contribute. There you'll find, that's probably the easiest way for me to direct that. You'll find a way that you could submit a form that has you could say, here's the topic I think that you should cover. But frankly, you could submit the form and somebody will review it. So toss your ideas that are relevant to Learn, whether it is you want to do the video or you just want the video to be made or a lesson plan to be made. Share those ideas in there and somebody from the training team will be along to help answer those questions. Also, if you are interested in participating in the team, don't feel that you need to be on camera, write it all, do everything, understand how to be a teacher and write an objective statement. Basically, any reason that you have for, I want to do it, but I'm scared. You are not expected to do everything, right? So we do have some people that are dedicated support for the team at this time. And we can help with writing objective statements and all these little pieces that teacher type of people think about. Our goal is to make it easy for people to learn. That doesn't mean that it's easy to just do. That also doesn't mean that it's hard either. But people that are not from a training mindset or an educational background will see things like objective statements and assessment questions. I don't know. You just do the thing. That doesn't help people learn. So we're here to help you through that process for sure. And we do hold meetings regularly in Slack. We're hoping to have more meeting options available so that Hugh in the APAC region does not feel alone.
Currently the main training team meetings at I think 3 or 4 a.m. my time, but we're working on that. That's a constant battle when we're working with time zones in the WordPress project and all teams. So that's nothing
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So related to that, I see a few questions that are coming into the Q&A area. The first one is, do you also see Learn as a resource for kids and youth as well? And if so, how do you see this being implemented? I will say, before I turn it over to Hugh, quick nod, Sandy, our co-host, is actually one of our 2 kids camp organizers. So you'll want to tune in to other weeks when Sandy is also the host, if you would like to get a little more insight in those areas. But I'll let Hugh answer this hard question about youth.
So like you said, we've had kids camp, or I think we started calling it youth camp at some point, I think. I think the name changed at some point. I forget, or youth events or something, I think.
Sandy says youth.
I think we went for youth because kids maybe seems exclusionary to slightly older youths, Sorry, saying youths makes me sound so old. Jeepers. That word is like youth. I don't think I've really said that word before like that. So sorry. So we've had those events going on when we could still do live events. That was a thing, and Sandy was running with it, and that was fantastic. And that's been great. And we wanted to get some of that content on Learn, and Sandy recorded some videos for that, and we got that content on there. And then we realized there's some guidelines around providing content for you for minors that we need to sort of be more pay more attention to, I guess. And we didn't really sort of take it into account. We just sort of put the videos up there. But if we're going to be specifically catering to people who are to youths, then we need to have certain guidelines in place in terms of how how things are done on the platform and be kind of clear about how things work. I'm not 100% clear on what those guidelines need to be at this stage, which is why we have now taken those youth videos down, and we'll get them back up there once we've established those guidelines and what we need to have in place there, because there's some legal requirements that we have to have in place. So
Yeah.
we do want to make it a resource for younger people as well. So like if you're in high school or even primary school and want to learn about how to use WordPress, you can. I mean, you can use the content that's there now. It's all family friendly. There's nothing, we're never going to have anything on there that's inappropriate, but it's nice to have stuff that's targeted at age groups. So.
Yes, for sure. So I will say, as a nod to the education youth related area, teachers are absolutely encouraged to come check out the pile of lesson plans that are there. Every time a teacher reaches out to me and says, I saw the lesson plans there, they are delighted because it's in a format that they're used to and meets their requirements as well. So one of the ways that we can use that is that those that are doing the education of youth. So if they are running a youth track at a WordCamp, certainly the lesson plans can help walk you through that process. If you would like to use them in a school setting, you may absolutely do that. But as far as direct to youth, in the US, we have COPPA, COPPA. There are a few other programs around the globe for people to research, but it's a lot of hoops. That's why if you upload a video to YouTube, they ask you, is this video intended to be for children? It's the same scenario, basically.
Yeah, so we've got to work out what that looks like for us and how we can make sure we're doing everything properly, which we haven't done yet, but it's on our roadmap to do.
Yeah, for sure. So last week or 2 weeks ago, wow, all the WordPress events are starting to blend. 2 weeks ago, one of your teammates, Cami, gave a talk around the training of and retaining meetup organizers and the community work that goes into that. That got me thinking about the community work that goes into the Make teams, building and fostering some of that same rapport among the team. And so COVID is happening. The training team has some history where our two co-founders of the team, Beth was joined third, Tracy Levesque and Courtney O'Callaghan, both did a lot of work to get Learn ready, even in those very early years. It started in 2013 at WordCamp San Fran, which is the equivalent to WordCamp US or EU in that era. And so even then, a lot of work was happening. But these two amazing ladies were in Philly and Washington, D.C., that both have very lively meetup groups, very lively WordCamps, lots of community happening there. And so the training team grew in those early years because of a lot of the in-person things that happened primarily in the northeastern part of the US. We're all online. We're not yet all hanging out in person, might be a little bit yet. So the question is, do you have any thoughts on how we can engage and retrain contributors for Learn?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
I feel like Learn is an interesting. It's positioned in an interesting place in the WordPress contributor community, especially. I mean, the WordPress project in general, because it's a sort of active training that we've never really done before as a project. We've always sort of left it to third parties to it, which has been some very successful in a lot of areas. But it's not, so generally in WordPress, it's an interesting position. But in the contributor community, especially, because what a lot of contributor teams need is sort of more training on how people can get involved in contributing to their team. That applies to all teams, so community, core, docs, polyglots, support, themes, design, mobile, all the teams. There's like 18 of them, like I said. They all need sort of helping people get on board with how to contribute to them. And all the teams have a handbook, which helps as sort of like a read this to find out how our team works, but that's just sort of static content that people have to read. Some of the handbooks and for some of the teams are really long and quite daunting and quite scary if you're new, you know. So an area where Learn can really be involved in sort of engaging new contributors, not just contributors to Learn itself, but just to the WordPress project in general, is by hosting content that trains people on how to contribute in different areas. So just micro workshops on how to do small things, like you want to submit a patch to core, but you don't want to get super involved in the core team. Here's how to do that. Here's a quick video on how to do that, that kind of thing. Or more sort of broader things with sort of how does the core team work and how do you get involved, like long term, like how is it structured, who are the people involved, what's the type of things you're going to be doing, all that kind of stuff. And we have the Polyglots team, which is the translation community, has been working on some training for the Polyglots team, and it's currently in beta, I think is the phrase we're using. It's been tested basically, where they have a course up about how to contribute to the Polyglots team, and they're going to and they're having some people running through that at the moment to test it out to make sure it's a logical flow and it works well and it covers all the content needed. And once that's confirmed, then it's going to be available more publicly, more readily to people. And that's just one of the 18 teams. We want to see that same type of content for all the teams, which is a big job, because most people who work on the WordPress project are volunteers and and do it either in their free time or like they have a few hours a week, maybe sponsored by their company. Like I said, I'm in this position where I get to, and my team and my division, we can work full time on the project, but most people aren't in that position. So getting people who are volunteers to create like a robust training course it's a big ask. So it'll be a while till we get all of that content there, but that's definitely a place where Learn is positioned rather uniquely in the WordPress contributor community, to get more people involved in every area of the project, which I think is one of the really exciting possibilities of the platform.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. And another one that came in, you could thank Hawa for a couple of these questions. Hawa asks, Hawa, by the way, is our training team co-rep. She is an amazing project manager. And a lot of you may have bumped into her if you were attending WordFest this past week. Hawa asks, do you have a favorite workshop and/or lesson plan? And why is that one your favorite?
That's a good question. There's a lot of workshops on there now. There's like 50 or so, I think, workshops on there now. So there's a lot, not all of them in English, which is great. To be honest, the workshops that I love seeing up there the most are the ones that are really focused on how to use a lot of the new features in WordPress. So we've got a workshop on how to use block patterns, for example. And the pattern directory is a new thing that was launched in WordPress 5.8. I'm not going to go in detail about that, but look it up if you're interested. Mm-hmm. Block patterns, for example, we got a workshop on how to use block patterns, and we got workshops on how to use the block editor to really get the most out of creating your content in it. And those kind of workshops I find really exciting, because it's people who might already know how to use WordPress, but it's giving them just that extra power to do a lot more and really take their sort of WordPress usage to the next level. So those workshops are really some of my favorites, just because they really give that extra kick to the potential of what you can do with WordPress.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick note, something I just thought of actually, as you were talking about badges, when small agencies or even large are looking to hire folks, they are wanting a certain set of skills. Yeah. Have you noticed a trend of people looking at our .org profiles? And do you think that those badges on those profiles might help that hiring process?
Yeah, so that's very much something I'd like to see with Learn as we go forward. And a feature that I'd like to have is that once we have the sort of proper course structure there, when you complete a course, it'll post to your WordPress.org profile and maybe like a list of the courses you've completed, for example. Because to get through a course, there'll be quizzes and assessments as you go. So by the time you get to the end, you would have been able, there will be proof essentially that you've learned that thing. And I'd love to see that on WordPress.org profiles, so that if someone's looking for a job, you can link to your profile, your potential employer can have a look at it and see, oh, you've learned these skills, and it can say the date that you did it, so they know if it's current, or if you did it 6 years ago, then maybe it's not as relevant anymore, because maybe WordPress has evolved since then. Learn hasn't been around for 6 years, but you know what I mean. So I'd love to see that kind of thing, and I really want to. I mentioned earlier, seeing that when people go through Learn to learn practical skills, it's skills that they can allow them to get a job or be employed or even do something freelance on the side or something like that. And that's very much where that comes in. A place where you can go and people can see, oh, it's almost like it's almost like this is your WordPress resume in a way. Like these are the things you know how to do with WordPress. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Hugh. It was really good to chat with you. If anyone has any quick questions, last minute questions, feel free to ask them. But do consider Learn a resource really for every facet of what WordPress is. Whether that is you need to hire quality talent, hopefully we'll get those badges happening. It won't be a real soon thing, I'll tell you folks, but we're working
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, it's getting there.
But also, what kinds of training and material are available for those that you do hire, the material that's there for the clients that you have using WordPress. It could also be a great destination spot for you to continue your own development skills. We know WordPress is constantly changing. The programming languages inside of WordPress are also evolving all the time. So there's never really an end to learning. But Learn can be this great resource for all of us to make it a lot easier, a lot more seamless to get started so that we don't have experiences like some of us have had, stumbling our way through, figuring out and hoping someone could help us.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you so much. And cool. I look forward to chatting again with you soon over in the training team.
Yeah, me too. And if anyone wants to get involved, like we've said already, contributing to Learn, come on board. Contributing can be anything from like recording workshops, which is sort of a big ask, and it's a great thing to be able to do if you're comfortable with that. It can also be to things just like helping to vet workshops that other people have submitted, which basically means look at their submission and say if it's going to be good for the site or not, which is much more more background sort of stuff. So if you're not comfortable being on camera, there's plenty of ways to get involved that aren't necessarily sort of upfront on camera sort of stuff, because we want anyone to be able to contribute to the project. So if you'd like to get involved, come along to make.wordpress.org/training. It's training team blog, and then also the meeting times on there. And yeah, that's that.
Good stuff. Thank you so much. Goodbye, all.